Today, we delve into a chilling case that shook the nation, the Sydney Powell murder case. In March of 2020, in a tranquil suburban neighborhood in Akron, Ohio, a horrifying crime unfolded. Brenda Powell, a 50-year-old mother, was ruthlessly attacked by her own daughter, Sydney. The assault was so vicious that Brenda succumbed to her injuries. The incident came to light when school officials, who were on a call with Brenda at the time of the attack, heard screams and immediately alerted the police. Sydney was promptly apprehended and faced charges of murder, felonious assault, and tampering with evidence. The prosecution contended that Sydney took her mother's life out of fear that Brenda would discover her suspension from university due to poor grades. The defense argued that Sydney was grappling with schizophrenia and couldn't discern right from wrong. In today's video, we'll closely examine this case, delving into the events leading up to the tragedy, the meticulous investigation, and the intense trial proceedings. Furthermore, we'll delve into the ripple effects this case had on the community and the broader implications it holds for our understanding of mental health in criminal cases. So stay tuned as we uncover the harrowing details of the Sydney Powell murder case. Before we go forward, please give the video a like and hit the subscribe button. That really helps the channel out. Brenda Powell was born on March 19, 1969 in Salem, Ohio. Her early years revealed a profound compassion for others, a trait that would later shape her career path. Graduating from the University of Akron, Brenda pursued her passion for aiding children. In 1992, Brenda became a vital member of Akron Children's Hospital, dedicating her entire career to being a child life specialist in the hematology-oncology unit. Here, she offered vital emotional support to young patients and their families during the challenges of hospitalization, helping them navigate the complexities of illness, injury, disability, and surgery. Brenda was not just a colleague, but a cherished figure, admired for her unwavering commitment to bettering the lives of children and their families. Her kindness and compassion made her an integral part of the hospital community, with patients and their families holding her in the highest regard. In 1995, Brenda crossed paths with her future husband, Stephen Powell. Steve, an emerging executive at Akron Steel Treating Company, and Brenda fell deeply in love, culminating in their union in 1998. Their shared journey led to the arrival of two children, Andrew and Sydney. Sydney Powell entered the world in 2001, growing up in a nurturing environment. Her time at St. Vincent St. Mary High School was marked by academic excellence, where she not only earned a place on the honor roll, but also captained the school's soccer team. Sydney graduated in 2018 with an impressive GPA of 3.8, a testament to her academic prowess. These achievements paved the way for her acceptance into the University of Mount Union. Yet the transition to university proved to be a formidable challenge. Sydney encountered difficulties in maintaining her academic performance, despite her prior successes. Ultimately, these struggles led to her dismissal from the university due to unsatisfactory performance. This period, from August 2018 to December 2019, was characterized by intense stress and a profound fear of disappointing her family. Consequently, Sydney chose to conceal her academic setbacks from her mother, Brenda. March 3, 2020, began much like any other day in the Powell household. Brenda was at home, engrossed in a phone call with officials from the University of Mount Union. Unbeknownst to Brenda, Sydney had received a suspension from the university due to poor grades. Fearful of her mother's reaction upon discovery, Sydney was grappling with a mounting sense of apprehension. During the call, the shocking sound of screams echoed through the line. Alarmed by the distressing noise, the school officials acted swiftly, promptly alerting the local police. They recounted hearing a series of thudding sounds, intermingled with desperate cries, before the line abruptly fell silent. Repeated attempts to re-establish contact with the Powell residence ensued. A voice, claiming to be Brenda Powell, answered the phone. However, the officials believed that it was not Brenda, but Sydney, on the other end. In a somber conclusion, the line fell silent once more. Arriving at the Powell residence on Scudder Drive, Akron police officers discovered Brenda with severe injuries. Both Brenda and Sydney were swiftly transported to a local hospital. Tragically, Brenda succumbed to her injuries during treatment. During her trial, prosecutors alleged that Sydney struck Brenda in the head with an iron skillet before inflicting nearly 30 stab wounds to her neck. In an attempt to conceal her crime, Sydney staged the scene to appear as a break-in. Sydney was apprehended and formally charged with murder, felonious assault, and tampering with evidence on April 6, 2020. In a heartfelt plea, Sydney's father, Steve Powell, implored prosecutors to consider an alternative resolution that would spare his daughter from standing trial for her mother's stabbing death. He fervently requested that murder charges not be pursued against Sydney, asserting that the family believed she was in the throes of a psychotic episode. Steve expressed the profound challenge of keeping their family united amidst this tragic circumstance. Sydney's maternal grandmother, Betsy Brown, echoed Steve's sentiments. Offering Sydney a place to stay after her release on bond, Betsy expressed a fervent desire to move forward from the heart-wrenching incident. Despite the fervent wishes of the Powell family, Summit County prosecutors opted to proceed with the murder trial. Sydney Powell's trial for the murder of her mother, Brenda Powell, commenced on September 7, 2023. Friends and relatives of the Powell family filled the gallery, offering a powerful display of support for Sydney throughout the trial. At the outset, Sydney entered a plea of not guilty by reason of insanity. Her defense attorney, Don Malarkick, argued that Sydney was in the grips of delusions and experienced a psychotic break at the time of the incident. The defense contended that Sydney suffered from schizophrenia, rendering her unable to be held accountable for the murder. They presented 3 expert witnesses who diagnosed Sydney with schizophrenia, asserting that she experienced a psychotic break when she took the life of her mother, someone she considered her closest confidant. These experts maintained that due to this mental disorder, she lacked an understanding of the wrongfulness of her actions. In response, the prosecution presented their own expert witness, clinical psychologist Sylvia Obradovich of Summit Psychological Associates in Akron. Obradovich contested the defense experts' diagnoses, attesting that Sydney was of sound mind at the time of the slaying. She testified that Sydney Powell did not exhibit signs of full-blown psychosis, as 3 defense medical experts had asserted, and maintained moments of lucidity both before and after the tragic event. In her testimony, Obradovich asserted that Powell did not meet the legal criteria for insanity at the time of the crime. She acknowledged Powell's mental health challenges, which included borderline personality traits, malingering, and an unspecified anxiety disorder. However, she diverged from the defense experts' conclusions, asserting that Sydney had not lost touch with reality. The prosecution presented compelling evidence to the jury, including the distressing phone call made by school officials from the University of Mount Union who were in conversation with Brenda at the time of the attack. Additionally, they submitted the arrest affidavit, which outlined in detail how Sydney fatally stabbed Brenda when a verbal altercation turned physical. Text messages exchanged between Sydney and her mother, Brenda Powell, were also introduced as evidence during the trial. These messages shed light on Brenda's frequent inquiries about Sydney's classes and grades. Lieutenant David Whitten, a key witness during the trial, attested that Sydney consistently misled her mother about her school performance, asserting that her grades were satisfactory. This contradicted the reality that Sydney was struggling academically and had faced suspension from the University of Mount Union due to poor grades. These text messages provided invaluable insight into the relationship dynamics between Sydney and Brenda, leading up to the tragic incident. They underscored the academic pressures Sydney grappled with and her deep-seated fear of disappointing her mother. The trial witnessed emotionally charged moments, notably when Malarchik became visibly moved during his closing statement, emphasizing that he had been guided by 4 words throughout the trial: "Please help us, Brenda." After deliberating for an extensive 9 hours and 23 minutes, on September 20, 2023, the jury rendered Sydney Powell guilty on all counts related to the fatal stabbing of her mother. The charges included purposeful murder, felony murder, felonious assault, and tampering with evidence. Following the reading of the jury's verdict in Summit County Common Pleas Court, Sydney Powell was promptly taken into custody. Audibly in tears, she was led away. On September 28, 2023, Sydney Powell received her sentence for the murder of her mother, Brenda Powell. Summit County Common Pleas Court. Judge Kelly McLaughlin handed down a life sentence. Sydney will be eligible for parole after serving 15 years in custody. Sydney chose not to address the court due to her pending appeals case. She responded with a soft-spoken yes when Judge McLaughlin inquired whether she wished for the court to appoint an attorney to represent her for the appeal. Sydney's reaction was evident. She was visibly distressed, shedding tears as she was escorted out of the courtroom. During the sentencing, Sydney sat with her back to her family. Attorney Don Malarkick explained that he had advised Sydney not to acknowledge her family or offer a statement, given the impending appeal process. Once again, she softly assented when Judge McLaughlin asked about legal representation for the appeal. Judge McLaughlin extended her heartfelt condolences to the victim's family and friends, expressing, "To the victim, to the family and the friends, I am terribly sorry for your loss here. I cannot imagine what you have been through." Following the sentencing, Malarchik expressed his profound discontent with the prosecutor's conduct in the courtroom. He contended that they had disregarded the rights of the Powell family as victims and criticized them for what he perceived as insensitivity, a sentiment that had persisted since the tragic event. Were you following the Sydney Powell case in the media? Do you believe that Sydney's mental struggles played a role in Brenda's tragic fate? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I would love to hear what you have to say. Until next time, this is Christina signing off.